Here are the three different types of MCAS. There's primary, secondary, and idiopathic. Hi, I'm Dr. Joyce Knieff. I am a naturopathic doctor practicing in the state of Minnesota. So the primary type of MCAS is also known as the clonal type. This is where there's something genetically abnormal with the mast cells themselves. There's a condition called systemic mastocytosis that falls under this category. Usually genetic testing or bone marrow biopsies can really catch this type of MCAS because there's some sort of genetic abnormality that's going on. And the most commonly known one is the KIT D816V mutation. So that's how that's looked at. The secondary form is when there's a known trigger that triggers the mast cells and the mast cells are overreacting. So this can be reactivity by the mast cells from something like an IgE-mediated thing, infections, or autoimmune disease. This is a little bit different from the type 1 hypersensitivity that is a plain IgE allergy, because with Mast Cell Activation Syndrome, you do have manifestation in 2 or more organ systems. So if you do have an IgE thing and you are symptomatic with symptoms in more than one organ system, then that IgE-mediated reaction could be considered secondary MCAS. And then you have idiopathic MCAS, which is the most common presentation in clinical practice. The idiopathic MCAS is the case in which we cannot identify a cause. You test the mast cells; they're genetically normal. It's just that for some reason they are overacting for an unknown cause. And knowing the types can really inform treatment, because if you have a genetic or clonal type of primary MCAS or systemic mastocytosis, then this is an area where you really do need to have a lot more symptom management therapeutics on board, because the mast cells themselves are genetically abnormal. So you do have to keep that in mind while you're deciding treatment. You're trying to stabilize those mast cells. You're trying to lessen the effect of histamine and other mast cell mediators to make sure that the inflammation in the body or the flares are kept as low as possible. In primary MCAS, there isn't really a cure because it is genetic. It's difficult to make the mast cells not be abnormal because of the way that they've been produced by your bone marrow. Now, if you have a secondary MCAS, then you know that there's a cause to that reactivity. What you can do is go address the cause or address the reactivity. Like, symptom control is still very important in this case, but if you have an autoimmune disease or an infection, you can always address the autoimmune disease or the infection to try to modulate the symptoms of the MCAS later down the line. And I think the idiopathic MCAS is the most exciting one because, again, there's nothing genetically wrong with the mast cells. There's no trigger that is known, which can be frustrating for some people, but this is where functional medicine and naturopathic medicine can come very intensely into play. Because if this type of MCAS has been developed because of some sort of immune system dysregulation, then we can really target the systems that help with immune system regulation, whether or not that's addressing gut health, whether or not that's addressing underlying infections or exposures to environmental toxicants. We can really do a lot to help the immune system just come back under regulation and perhaps lessen the effect of this idiopathic MCAS. So those are the three types of MCAS and why they matter, because they really inform treatment. I hope that helps. Click some of these buttons if you found that helpful, and leave a comment if you found this interesting or if you have further questions. Thanks.